Hey, everybody, it's Dave Duford here at davidduford.com, where I help insurance agents like you become top producing insurance professionals. And today I continue my new agent success story interview series. I've decided this year in 2019 to profile as many newer agents as possible who will go over what they were able to do in their first year, 2 years, something like that, to achieve success. One of the biggest problems in this business is too many agents fail out. We need to change that. So that's kind of what I'm looking to do, is uncover what steps you need to make as a new agent in order to beat the average, which in this case is failure. So today I brought on Mrs. Melissa Hall to interview. Say hello today, Melissa.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Thank you so much for joining us. So Melissa, we're going to jump right in and kind of tell us about yourself. What's your background? And just kind of give us a rundown of who you are and why you're here.
Sure, absolutely. So thank you again, David, for the opportunity to come on and to speak to everyone out there. I've definitely been a fan and been listening to you for over the years, and your work that you do for the industry, the knowledge you give is so greatly appreciated. So a little bit about me. I've actually been licensed 11 years in the insurance business, right? I originally from Maryland, got started when I was 21 years old, right? So that gives you a little bit of how old I am. And I have failed out the business. I can say that, right? And I've actually been back in the business in 2 years, for the past 2 years, and have had tremendous success. So a lot of those lessons and everything like that, I think I'm really good to speak on, right? Currently, I am the owner of the Hall Insurance Group, right? And we are a nationwide all women agency. So I'm very proud of that. We focus mainly in the senior market with a very, very strong focus on Medicare. So that's it.
Cool. So unlike a lot of agents that get involved in this business, you were smart. Let me complete that sentence, because that kind of sounds weird. You're smart to start as young as you did. I would think that all the older ones who are in their 40s and 50s, who are just getting started now, as many are, look back and wish they would have started this earlier. What attracted you to insurance in the first place, especially at 21? Is this something you've always wanted to do?
Absolutely not, right? So, insurance is not one of those careers that you kind of want to do, right? Unless you have like a parent who's in it, very successful type of thing. But it wasn't. I actually wanted to be a lawyer. That's what I was going to college for. And what attracted me to insurance was that my grandmother, during that time, she couldn't be insured, okay? Because she had Alzheimer's. Hold on for 1 second, okay? Can we pause this? Can you hear this rain? You can't? Okay, no problem. It's a big storm outside my window, so I just making sure.
Oh, really? Yeah, we had those clouds over here in Chattanooga. So, but
Okay.
So, no, we're good.
Okay.
Hold
Okay.
on 1 second. Let me make a little note here.
Okay.
This kind of pops up on the audio, so I know where to cut it off. So, okay, you can keep going now.
Okay. So how I got into the business is this. My grandmother, she um was diagnosed with Alzheimer's back in around, let's say, 2008, right? Around that time. She lived in South Carolina. Like I said, I was in like my second year at college. And I remember them talking about trying to find life insurance for her, right? My grandmother was one of those old school women who did not believe in insurance. She's a hairdresser. She saved $10,000, and that was it. And $10,000 was a lot of money. And so that was her story, right? And so when she got up here, we were trying to insure her. That was an issue that had came up. And also too, at the time, my mother, right? She had saw something on TV where a girl passed away and her family was stuck with her student loans. And so between her telling me I'm not going to be stuck with your student loans and the situation with my grandmother, I got a call to interview with an insurance agency. And I'm going to tell you this. When I got that call to go for that insurance agency and they did that whole presentation, I knew that's what I wanted to do. Like, I knew it. I knew it. And I remember talking to the guy beside me, and I said, "Hey, are you going to do it?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, well, me too." And that's kind of it, right? Of course, I did go and I told people that I was going to sell insurance, and a lot of them told me no, right? And then I had we all had that one rich uncle, right? And he actually made his money in the insurance industry, and he was like, "Go do it." And so the next day after I had that, I went and maxed out my little credit cards, and I took the test. I was in the class the next day, and I got my license. I'm not lying to you, in 1 week. 1 week. I went for the interview on Monday. That Tuesday I was in the class. That Thursday I was taking the test. I passed my test results, and where I took my test was probably about a mile away from the Maryland Department of Insurance. So I took my test results right there to the Maryland Department of Insurance. They gave me my license right then and there. So and that was it. That was it.
So you're selling Medicare for the most part now, but when you got started, what line of insurance were you selling, and what was it like in those first couple of months? Was it frustrating? Was it training? Kind of give us the overview there.
Sure. So I started off selling final expense, right? Good old final expense, because that's what can insure my grandmother. And in my first 3 months, right, my first 90 days, I did amazing. Okay. I went from, being a college student, right? Being a college student, living in a boarding house with roommates, to actually moving on the other side of town. And Joe Flacco, who's actually the quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens, right? It was his freshman year. He became my neighbor. Ed Reed was my neighbor. 3-level townhouse. Like, life was good. And I was 21 doing that in 90 days. My whole life completely changed.
And so did the good times keep rolling? I mean, have you mentioned early on you failed out of the business. Was this something that happened sooner, or did this happen later in life? What's the story behind that?
Sure. I'll talk about it. So it's something that happened later in life, right? So I actually owned call centers for a while. So, I did final expense, right? Definitely made some money with that and kind of got my feet wet. And then I opened up call centers. I opened up 2 call centers in Maryland. I had 2 offices, one on the top floor, one on the bottom floor, selling supplements, health plans, and also before they were ACA, major medical plans, right? And during that year, when I opened up my call center, that's when Obamacare, or ACA, Affordable Care Act, came in. So you know how that whole story went. And
Yeah, I've got agents that started final expense because they had planned on retiring from their healthcare commissions. I remember one guy he was making $200,000 a year just on autopilot until ACA rolled out, and like 2 years later he had like maybe 30,000 a year he was making. It was devastating. So you started right when all that was happening. Like,
I did. I started, and then I wasn't, and I was still new to that line of work, because from that time forward, I had been doing just straight final expense. So my carrier actually ended up getting out of the whole not Medicare, the whole health insurance market, and they left the state. And it was definitely devastating. So during that time, of course, I had to make some adjustments. I had to close down shop. Since I actually stopped going to college, like, I had dropped out of college to sell insurance at the time, I decided that I was going to go back to school. I was going to go get a job, right? And I got a job in banking. I was a banker. Go back to school to finish my degree, which I did do. And so I got a chance to be in a real world. And one thing right? That's what they call it, right? The real world. And one thing I found out is that it's people who hate their jobs every day, and they go to them, and they get paid every 2 weeks, and they have to stick to that. And I was there like, oh my God, like I couldn't take it.
I know this interview's about you, but I have to intervene because you and I share a similar story, because I failed out in my first year of final expense, and I went to work for Aramark, which is a Fortune 500 uniform company.
Yes.
And it was my first real job, right? I've always worked for myself. I didn't have any reference point. And it just shocked me. And again, this is probably normal, but I would walk around and I would see people who hated their jobs, that would work and grind it out just as hard, if not harder, than an insurance person to make crappy money, to be put in positions where they're under constant stress to perform, constant stress to cut costs. And some of them would talk how they hated their jobs, how they wish they could work here instead, and one day they're going to do this. And boy, did they just keep coming back for more abuse. And to me, in my mind, I thought, what the hell, man? You're going to sit here and complain, do something. But most
Yes.
people won't. They won't do anything. It just, I don't know. I'm just relaying. It sounds like you know what I'm talking about. So
Yeah,
people,
I do know what you're talking. I do know what you're talking about, and it's so crazy because I ended up actually relocating around that time as well. And so where I'm from in Maryland, in Baltimore, a lot of people knew me, you know, being in the insurance industry, being very, very successful, things like that. And so when I relocated here to North Carolina, no one knew me. And I'm telling them, yeah, I used to do this and this and that. And they're like, why are you here? Or like they didn't believe me. But I knew that as soon as I finished my degree, because, you know, and I know some people do this business and go to college, more power to them. I just didn't have it, you know, in me. But I knew as soon as I finished this degree, I was going to get back to work because, you know, I'm just grateful. I'm grateful for the opportunity and the skill set to be able to just work for myself. And I knew that this time too, I was going to make it count. I was really going to make it count, and that was more important than anything. I was going to make it count because you kind of saw it, and you know those jobs, they do give you how can I explain, like you learn structure and different things about running a big corporation from them. And you know, especially since I was a banker, I got to see different things and how people were making money and how people were really living and different things like that. So it all had its purpose.
yeah, definitely. And that's the right mindset. Part of this interview series and book eventually that we're doing here is, you know, I think it's really important for agents to new agents getting into this business to really understand a lot of this business about being successful is mindset. It's like looking at adversity as an opportunity to grow and be better. You know, I don't regret, I'm sure you don't either. I want to put words in your
Mhm.
mouth. I don't regret failing. I regret that it happened, but I also extract lessons from it that make
Yes.
me better. And I'm sure you're the same way.
Yes, absolutely. Like, you know, it definitely you know, because it hurts when you're going through it, but it makes you all that you are. And the money and the success that I have made being back in this business the past 2 years just just surpasses everything so fast that when I first started this business, because I have a lot more wisdom now. You
Right.
understand? Yeah. So like for what I make now, it took me when I initially got started in this business about 6 years to do. And I've been able to surpass that and consistently do that in these past, you know, 2 years, year and a half. So, you
Right.
know, it's all part of it. You know, it's all part of it.
One thing I tell people, the insurance business is a get rich slow business.
Yes, it
And
is.
and I think part of it, now it doesn't mean that I know people get rich fast in this business, but I think it's more realistic that you're going to have, you know, I think it's like Al Granum or one of these old life insurance sales legends that basically said the first 4 years of selling insurance, it's like you're going to school, like for med, you're like in residency. You're
Mhm.
making a pittance, you're working like a dog, but you're developing the skill set that's going to ultimately pay off in the long run. But once you get done, which I would call it the school of hard knocks, is really what it is. Once you get through that multi-year period of time, things just start to change. You know, you like all that effort you put in, you see a measurably larger return. And that's how it was with me. My first 4 years, I made okay money. I did all right. But then once I got over like the fifth year or so, I started really doing really well. You know, and
Mhm.
each year it's been progressively better, you know,
Absolutely.
but if I had plenty of reasons to quit in that first year, and most people do, and we don't want them to do that, because if they just keep going, you know, they'll find that they'll do better off.
Exactly, exactly. And you know, one thing I say too about it, like you know, and one thing is this: insurance really, depending on what you do, though, in the fifth year, you can kind of semi-retire if you would like.
You can.
You know, if
Yeah.
you're doing it right, if you're doing it right. one thing that I found that a lot of people don't do, and I admit I was guilty of it too when I first started, is that they don't go to work every day. Okay. They put it, and it's like, it's so crazy to me because people say this all the time. I want to own my own business because I want to be able to go to work when I want to.
Well, if that's the case, I'll see you next month, you know?
Right, exactly. And that's so not it. If you're an agent, you're listening to this, if you're going to work when you want to, if you think it's that type of deal, please change immediately, right? I'd rather you say that you're going to go to work from, 10 to 2 every day, 5 days a week, than go, two times a week. That will not get you there or when you feel like it. Because to really make that type of money that they promise you, you can't go to work when you feel like it. Target is open from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Yeah, that's true.
Monday through Saturday, rain, hail, sleet, or snow. They're even
Right.
open, they're even open on what is it, New Year's Eve. I'm sure the employees don't feel like it, but that's how you have to
Right.
run. That's how you have to run yourself. So that's one of the biggest mistakes I see with people.
Yeah, it's funny, again, all these commonalities I see amongst top producers is their willingness to work and pay their dues. There's a price you have to pay for success. And it's the time involved to develop yourself and to run your business. And you make a great point. I never thought about that. It's like, look at every other companies open 24 hours a day for business. They don't work casually. They have a regimented schedule. And you have to think of yourself as more of a business owner than as an employee.
Yes.
That mentality, you've got to work half days. But if you're going to work the first 12 hours or the second 12 hours, that's what I say to you. It's at least the minimum. If you want in the long term, which is to be in that position of semi-passive, passive income, I don't work nearly as hard or as often. Well, I work a lot, but not to the same degree as I did when I first started, because like you lay the groundwork for later on when you can put the brakes on, but you got to pay it up front in order to get there.
Exactly. And that's what she said. The type of work that you do now is a different type of work. Like you're doing these interviews with me, right? It's more now, you're more on the education and coaching side of the business versus the producing side. It's still work, but it's a different type of work, the type of things that you're doing.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about that. I'm curious. So you're in a position now where you own your own agency. Like you said, you have a women's only agency. I guess that's the best way I could describe it.
It's not women's only. We do accept men. we do accept men, but that's just kind of what's been attracted to me as women. And so I like it.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm curious, now you're in the role of, like me, you have built an organization. You presumably strive to develop and coach your agents to become successful like you. What are the common things that new agents run into that are roadblocks to success?
Sure. Great question. I think number one is not wanting to invest. That's the number one thing. They don't want to invest in leads. That's it. And it's so hard. It's like, that's the number one thing that I see.
Why do you think they don't want to invest in leads? Like, is it they can't afford it? Are they afraid? They don't believe it's possible? Like, what's the
Sure. I think a lot of it is affording it, afraid of it, right? Definitely being afraid of it and affording it because they've heard so many horror stories, right? Or they feel, oh, well, I can go ahead and, get referrals and all this stuff like that. And a lot of the agents that come along, we got to be honest, they're broke, right? So a $300, and if they go another 2 months, their car is going to get repossessed. It's a big deal to them. But it's like this. Somebody told me, well, they didn't tell me, I was listening to their podcast. They said a lot of people don't invest in their business or themselves because they don't trust themselves to do the work. So
like they know deep down they're not serious. Is that what you?
Right.
Interesting.
Right. I think that's it. Like they know they're not going to really work them. Like they know or whatever. So I think that's number one.
Can you change somebody's mindsets like that? Or is that something that they have to
They
handle
have
on
to
their
do
own.
it with internally themselves because they got to commit to doing the work and pushing through. You know, so these people are not nice that we talk to on the phone all the time. You
Right.
know, and some people are very sensitive to that. You know, and you can't let it break you. And I don't think the average person, especially if they've never had a sales position before, they don't know how to shake that off.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. It's weird. It sounds simple when you've never done it. And then when you do it and you realize, wow, yeah, the amount of abuse you can take.
It is, no, for real. You really do get abused, you know, by these people, and they do take advantage of folks, of us, right?
Mhm.
Because a lot of times they know that we're commission people. I remember when I was selling insurance in Baltimore, I used to feel so bad for the people. I used to be taking them groceries, like, like
Yeah.
I used to take them groceries. You know, we were supposed to have a final expense appointment. I used to take them groceries. They still wouldn't even let me in the house. They used to take the groceries and close the door in my face.
Wow, man.
Yeah, yeah.
You turn cold hearted, man, after a while. I don't know if you turn cold hearted, you just realize how people are, you know? It's like,
Yeah, you do. No, you do. You do. You have to build that thick skin, and it hurts.
yeah.
And I think that, and it's an ego thing too, right?
Mhm.
And listen, if you got a regular job, like you come and doing this for like being an accountant or something, you don't have to deal with this.
Yeah. You
You
know you're
know?
going to get paid as long as you follow the rules. You know, you can follow the rules in this business and still not get paid. It's weird, you know, and then you
Wow.
can do everything right all day long, not get paid, and do the same exact work the next day, and then everybody throws their checkbooks at you. It's the weirdest thing, you know.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. And the thing is too, like those people, they don't have to deal with the public. And you
Right.
know, a
Yeah.
lot of times, especially final expense and stuff, those people aren't normal people. They're lower income, you know, so they
Yeah.
have attitude and they
Yeah.
got a
It's
lot.
again, it sounds, and it sounds almost disrespectful in saying that, but it's not. It's just we're understanding the mentality of the people we see. Final expense is very unique relative to, you know, I hate to say normal person. There's a lot of people that fit the final expense profile, but you have to sell this to understand what we're trying to say here. I get what you're
Yeah,
saying entirely, and it's all about understanding the people you deal with, and it's not obvious when you first start that that's a thing, but it becomes quickly so if you
yes,
observe it.
you know,
You know?
you definitely have to have a little edge on you to do this.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah, to say the least. So okay, so not wanting to invest in themselves with leads. Let's say we have an agent that's got leads, they put a little money out. What prevents those agents in some cases from not seeing the success that they want?
sure. Being soft, like I said, being soft, being soft. That's it. Because these people can
Yeah,
break you down. Like
right.
I remember I had one agent. She used to sell term insurance, right? And she went. And if we're just talking about final expense, I don't know if we're talking about the insurance industry in general, but
Sure, sure.
okay. But for final expense, she sold term, right? And I will never forget. She said she went to a house, and the house was dirty, and it was it was a cat crawling on her. and, and she quit. And,
Because of a cat?
but
Man,
she
that's like yeah, I don't know if you saw, but like I got my crazy cat lady uh thing here. You know, like that's normal. I praise God if that's all I run into when I go out in the
I
field.
know
A
that's
couple cats.
but still she was but that really prevented her though from being successful because it was the cat just threw her off so bad, and you know the house probably wasn't clean, and she just wasn't used to she was used to dealing with new homeowners and all this
Yeah,
stuff, so
right. Yeah.
yeah, so that right there, especially the final expense, lower income people, just all in general too, like I said, just not going to work. Like that's it.
Yeah.
Also to the skill part. And that's something, now let's talk about this, right? So especially with me developing my own agency, that's something that I have found out. People have to get, especially if you've never been in sales before, you have to get in the right situation. Okay. For instance, if you have never sold anything before, maybe being in an agency where you're remote might not be the thing for you. You understand? I'm sure you understand that.
Yeah, I mean,
It,
it again, it's deceptively complex. Oh, I'm just talking to people, you know? Or, oh, you just go work. Well, yeah, but you're going to wake up a lot of days after a rough day and like not want to, but you have
Right.
to. Or maybe you think you're doing something right, but you're not aware of the mistakes you're making in your presentation.
Right. Right. Exactly. And if you've never been in sales before, you never sold insurance before, and especially if you're not going to go and fly out and get some training or just something, like, you got to make sure you're in the right situation. And it might come down to you having a smaller contract, a lower contract or something, which, hey, it's okay to get the right commission, to get the right training. You know what I mean? I know when I started this business, I started out on 65%, which is nothing. I didn't know any better at the time,
Right.
but I got a great foundation.
Yeah. So many agents say the same thing. I can't tell you how many agents I've talked to say, oh, yeah, I started at the 50-point contract or the 60-point contract. And look, I'm all about getting the best deal you can on commission. Don't get me wrong. But there is something to be said about the groundwork that you lay. There we go again. Going back to
Yeah,
the fundamentals you learn.
exactly. And I think you have to be honest with yourself, because if you're doing per se everything, you invest in whatever like that, look at your sales skills. Look at your skills. That I think that's something, especially new agents, they should really, really examine, is their sales skills and how they can improve it, especially if you're new, just the sales in general, So
Sure.
definitely.
So let's go back to your first ever sales presentation. Do you remember what that was like?
Yes, I do.
Tell us how it went.
So my first sales presentation, I went out with my manager at the time. Shout out to Ryan McKinney. And we went out, and I didn't go in because they had a dog. So I stayed outside.
Oh,
I
wow.
stayed outside.
So you presented outside with the prospect?
Oh no, I let him go in.
Oh, okay. Are you afraid of dogs? Is that what that is?
Huh?
Are you afraid of dogs?
Yes, I am.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes, I am. So that was my first one. Now on my second one, we did a door knock and we sold the policy, and that was it.
Well, so how was what was the presentation? I mean, were you nervous? Did you feel like you knew everything? I mean, like what was your kind of emotions when you were doing it? That door knock that you did the appointment on.
Sure. I mean, I was maybe a little nervous. I didn't show it. How nervous I was. I was a little nervous, but I just went into it and just was just like, hey, here I am, type of deal. Because I did have a background in sales as
Okay.
well. So I used to sell cell phones when I was in high school to people who would come down the escalator, and our stand would be right here.
Right.
And so I used to have to wave and flag people down.
Right.
Excuse me, sorry about that.
That's okay.
So I used to have to wave and flag people down. So I'm thinking that definitely translated into me not being as nervous.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
Yes. So it was just kind of just like that. And I acted real confident to the point where when we left out that appointment, he said, "You're a natural. You don't need me." And that's
Really? Wow.
yes,
That's
that's
good.
what he said. That's what he said. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure you did you feel like you knew everything going into that first sale?
I don't know. I didn't feel like I knew everything, but I just knew people. You get what I'm saying? I just know people. I didn't know everything. I didn't necessarily know the details.
Right. But you knew how to connect with them to develop
Exactly.
a relationship. That's good.
Exactly.
Reason I ask this question is because a lot of people think, especially new agents, that they have to know everything about the product, and it's funny, you really don't. You have to
No.
know just a base level. And don't get me wrong, you should go in with an idea of what burial insurance is or whatever it is you're selling. But you don't have to know all the nitty gritty. But what you do have to know how to do is connect with someone. You have to show them you care, because that's what people do. They buy from people they trust and they like. And they'll be very forgiving, surprisingly so, that you don't know all the details. But if you come off as somebody that is sincere and genuine, you'll be surprised. They'll want to buy from you anyway.
Exactly. That's very true. Don't, and that's one thing I guess that stops people too, is getting caught up in the details type of deal.
Right.
And yeah, and I didn't know any of the details. I didn't know anything. Like I said, I just got my license that Tuesday and I was out there that Friday. So
Yeah.
I got a whole license, so I really didn't know much. And I just went out there, like you said, just connecting with people. People will be nice. I will say, if you don't know much, please don't tell these people, oh, it's my first day.
Yeah.
Keep that information to
Right.
yourself.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, because this, you have to remember, this is serious to them. This is the, last policy they'll probably ever buy, type of
Yeah.
deal. So they want to
Sure.
think they want to think they're dealing with somebody who knows what's going on here. But, you know,
Cool. So, kind of as we're rounding down here, last little bit of questions here. Think of the agents that may be listening or reading that are struggling. They're going through the same kind of adversity we talked about earlier. What kind of advice would you get them to turn the ship and start getting better results?
sure. I would definitely tell them to employ the rule of 100. For those of you all who do not know what the rule of 100 is, it's something that Brian Tracy uh, uh, came up with, where you try to speak to 100 people as quickly as possible about your product.
Right.
So, and that will drive the momentum in your business. Okay. So that is what I would tell you to, first of all, turn it around. Also too, um, okay, that's about it. Also too, make some business hours for yourself and stick to them. I think that's really uh helped me a lot, is that I have business hours now. Some people just say, oh, I work all the time. Mm-mm. What type of life is that? Just get some business hours and stick to them.
So you're
And
saying like schedule work time and be consistent.
yes, of course. Of course. Like, I know I work from 9 to 7 Monday through Friday, and 10 to 2 on Saturdays, and I'm off on Sundays.
Right.
Anything outside of that, it's my time. And it's made it much more enjoyable for me, because I'm going to tell you, like, in the past, when I quote unquote failed out the business or whatever, I would work all the time, right? I would work all the time for a good like 2-3 months. Then I would just be so burnt out and so like disgusted at the business. You know what I mean? Just
Sure.
just like so over it, because I felt like that's all I did. And I didn't have any time for myself or things that I wanted to do, because you will want to do other things besides work.
Yeah. Oh
that,
yeah.
that I just would like, take off for a month or two. And then during that time, you would get so far behind, and then, you back on the pinwheel again. You know what I mean? So schedule your work, and be gracious with yourself. Understand, like, hey, I really do have to take time for me. And that's okay. Just schedule it. Even if you were working a 9 to 5, you would have off Saturdays and Sundays. Those people who tell you, oh, you have to work 7 days a week, whatever. Don't you want to live? Even
Um,
God took off on the 6th day.
yeah.
Go ahead.
That's very true. And that's the thing about this business, I think, is appealing long term, is that you can have a component of lifestyle with your business model. I don't think in the beginning that you shouldn't be rewarding yourself with that. And it's something that's a multi-year process. Um, Many people are too entitled to think that they get that stuff right away, but you got to pay your dues to get to that. It takes years to where you have the ability and the right to. I mean, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you're absolutely right. I was listening to what you're saying just a second ago, and it's funny how you learn more about yourself and what your limits are and what you need to succeed long term by going through this process. You find out you do get burnout. You
Mm-hmm.
find out where your ups and downs are, and you learn how to manage yourself better,
Yeah.
so that you can go the distance in this business and have a career.
Yes, absolutely. And also too, another thing I would say to people too is two things, and it's two different things. Um, Another thing I would say is, when you're a part-time agent, right? Because when I came back into this business, I did start off as part-time, right? To try to go full-time. I want you to be very realistic with yourself, if you even have time to do this business. You, because
Yeah.
I know that, because it is a learning curve, right? And if you are planning on doing this business as a part-time agent, just be very real, be very realistic with yourself. Be realistic about when you're going to work. and really stick to it. You know, I have a lot of agents that come to me who say, "Hey, I'm working part-time, but I want to make $20,000 a month." Okay. Well, do you know how
Me
much work?
too.
Right, right, exactly. Exactly. But do you know how much work it takes to really make $20,000 a month? You know, and you're mad because your door knock didn't work out right, nobody was home, or they moved. You know, is you making $20,000 a month? You know, is that going to stop you from doing that? Are you, you know, just really be realistic with
Yeah.
yourself,
Right.
especially doing it part time, because this is a really a full time kind of deal. But so, but it can be done. It can be done. And when I started off back off part time, I just got so overwhelmed with my business because business was going so good. And I used to get up really early, right? And I used to get up maybe like 8 a.m., 7 a.m., you know, and be out the house, right? And go and door knock and see clients before I went to my part-time job.
Oh, wow.
And then after, yeah, and on my lunch, I would call people. And then after I would get off, you know, it really, like, you have to get it in your mind that you're not going to have a lot of free time.
Right. Right.
So I would do that. And then the other piece of advice, those of you who do want to build a team, just think about, you know, everybody wants to build a team. Everybody, you know, is sold the dream of, oh, well, I'll just recruit all these people and they'll make all this money for me. Well, just know that people don't want to follow people who aren't making money. And, you know, and you should really kind of take care of yourself first. Like I said, I have a team now. I've built it kind of quickly, but because I had money already and they could tell that I had money and they could tell I was successful. People can always smell a rat, right? And being broke stinks. Okay. And you don't want to go and, you know, attract trash to you, you know, and you can do that, you know, being broke and just getting all, oh, well, I recruited all these people, but they're not doing anything, right? And I don't know, just take care of yourself first and just keep that in mind when you're
So are you
recruiting.
suggesting that agents should be successful selling insurance before they recruit? Is that what you're saying? Really?
Oh my God, that's such a profound idea.
Ah, what a shock. What a shock. That's the title of our interview. Believe it or not, you have to be successful first before you can recruit. Or at least you should be. You really should.
Exactly. And enthusiasm will only take you so far.
Yeah. And look, have patience too, man. This is a career. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You know, again, it just comes down to the same boring stuff. I feel like it's boring, but it's profoundly true. It's all the fundamentals. Apply yourself, be consistent, show up, go to work, and multiply that by 5 years. You'll be surprised at the kind of wealth that you can earn, you know.
Absolutely.
So so rounding this out here, what's next for Melissa? Where's your aspirations leading you the next 5 to 10 years?
5 to 10 years, I definitely want to franchise my agency. So I want to have HIGs all over the world, hopefully. I want to be the top sales trainer for service-based salespeople. You know, I feel like I'm very good at teaching people how to sell insurance, but I was very great in financial services as well. And you'd be surprised, those bankers and stuff, they could definitely learn a thing or two.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
Go figure.
yes.
Yeah.
Right. So definitely that's why I say for the service-based industry. And also too, I want to be instrumental in taking final expense international, you know, and insurance in general. I've talked to people from different countries and they have insurance in their countries, but nothing like final expense. And they can't even get it. They said you have to be like super healthy.
What countries are you talking about? I'm curious. I've kind of seen this too. I'm just curious.
Asia.
Really? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you go on YouTube, it's the funniest thing, and you put in like selling insurance, you'll see like my videos, and then you'll see some guy from India, and they've got like 500,000 views, and I'm thinking, man, there's got to be some kind of market for insurance there. And I've had a few of them contact me and say like, it's like the biggest sector right now, growing, and there's not a lot of people insured, and it's a big push now. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I've kind of wondered what opportunities there are internationally, because it's, you know,
It is a lot. And, you know, I was following this one people on Instagram and they have an insurance agency and I want to say, I don't think it's AIG, but I want to say it is. It's on Instagram though. But he pops up and they're like in Singapore
Really?
selling
Okay.
insurance. And like it's a real big thing over there, you know?
Yeah.
So you know, everything is global, and I think insurance is too. You know, well, I know it is too. And one thing, especially with me getting into business when I was so young, you know, being in final sense and insurance in general is not very, I like to say, it's not sexy, right?
No,
It's not. No, it's
not at
not.
all.
It's not. You know, and you got to kind of humble yourself to that as well, because it's not like real estate and you showing all these nice houses and everybody's like it's so cool. No, you're taking pictures with people's grandmothers, right? And,
Right. I'm with Mildred. Yeah. Instagram
yeah,
that joint.
exactly, exactly. So you know, it's not. But the older I get now, it's so much you could really do with it, though. It is so
Oh,
much.
yeah.
Yeah, it's so much. And I mean, hey, flying to Singapore on a private jet, that's sexy to me. So
Yeah. Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Cool. Well, tell my audience where they can find out more about you. Let's say they like what you have to offer, maybe want to work with you, or just reach
sure,
out to you. How can they reach you?
sure. Go to melissadhall.com and schedule a partnership session, right? If you are interested in opportunities in the business. And also you can find me at Melissa D Hall on all social media. Okay. I'm on there on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Just put in Melissa D Hall insurance or just Melissa D Hall and I come up.
That's Melissa D as in David Hall, right? .com.
Yes.
And then everything social media. I'll have if you'll send me your links via email, I'll put them in to the description box on the YouTube. And
Okay.
so everybody watching this, you just click that and then it'll take you to wherever she's listed. So Melissa, thank you so much for having me on. Thank you for coming on my show. And this has been really fun and very
Yeah.
instrumental, I think, in helping a lot of newer agents really get proper perspective on what it takes to be successful.
Thank you so much, David. I appreciate it. And I hope everybody got value out of this. And I love to hear y'all thoughts for real. So thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Leave the comments below, all of them, and I'll be happy to respond. All right, Melissa,
Okay.
thanks again. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome, David. You're welcome. Do you want me to hang on for a second or?
Yeah, it'd be fine.